Hi, and welcome once again to Nancy Moran's all-out, full-fledged, nothing held back, everything I can think of to tell you ultimate booking and touring program. We are in Module 1, Establishing Good Routes. Now, this is the part, unfortunately, that everyone hates, and therefore, most of us usually skip over this part. But this is also perhaps, in my opinion, the most important part of the booking process. In fact, I can't stress enough to you how important this module is going to be to your ultimate success. Now, I know you probably want to just jump in and get going, because that's what we like to do most of the time, and that includes me too. You want a gig, so you pick up the phone, you send an email to a venue that everyone's playing, so it must be the place to play, so you want to play there too. And you just ask for the gig, you just start booking, you just start doing. It's really hard for me to say to you, wow, that's a really bad thing to do, stop doing, stop all that doing. I'm certainly not implying that. But I want you to get not just any gig. I want you to get the right gigs for you. So, in this course, we're going to start right at the very beginning, and we're going to do the hard work first. And trust me, you're going to thank me for this later because you are going to see results from doing this. Now, I'm calling it establishing good routes because I just like the concept of putting down some roots. You know, the root is the one chord. It's what everything's in relation to that root. And you can't grow a tree or a plant or even grass without good roots. You know, it feels mighty and strong to me. So I like that concept. So we are in the process right now of establishing good roots before you get in to that whole booking process. Okay, so before you begin anything else, you need to know your why. Why do you want to gig? Why do you want to go on tour, if you do at all? And there could be a million different reasons why you want to do that. Maybe you just want to make some money or increase your mailing list. Maybe you want to play music and have fun again. Remember when music was fun? Maybe you want to see the country or the world. Spread your message. Maybe music is your ministry. Maybe you're an artist that just wants to share your artistic message with the world. Or maybe you just need to do a lot of gigs because you need to improve your performing skills. There are a ton of different reasons and plenty more that I have not listed here. And they're all perfectly valid. But you need to know what your reasons are, because your answer to this question is going to affect how and why you'll do certain things and take specific actions in the future, further down in this whole booking process. Okay? Also, you're going to use this answer to this question to make sure that you're staying on track. For example, if you want to tour because you're an artist and you want to share your artistic message with all kinds of different audiences, that's where you find your fulfillment. Really, that's your purpose, okay? Then if all you're ever playing are cover gigs where you're playing other people's songs all the time, well, eventually you're not going to be very happy doing that because you're not going to be getting your why. You're not going to be getting that fulfillment. Even if those gigs are paying you really well, eventually something's going to be gnawing at you. And I'm telling you right now, this is the answer to that question. Why isn't this working for me? Because you're not fulfilling your why. Now, you also need to be aware that your why can change over time. So if you're going on tour, let's say every year, then every year before you go on tour, you need to ask yourself this question again. And if you're just kind of gigging all over all the time, then occasionally check in with yourself. Have things changed? Because, after you fulfill one part of yourself, sometimes you just go, oh, well, that was fun for a while, but now I really want to do something else. So your why can change. Make sure you're constantly checking in with yourself, so that if your why changes, you know it and you can change with it. Okay? But critically important to know your why. Also important is you need to know your what and your who. What kind of music do you do, and who do you play it for? Here's something that I want to stress. You have to know not just how to play your music, you have to know how to talk about your music. And to musicians, this is sometimes a huge stumbling point because we don't like to talk about our music. We just like to play our music and let it speak for itself. But people are going to ask you about your music, and they're going to expect you to have a coherent answer. Specifically to this question, what kind of music do you do? Man, I don't know why this question is so difficult for musicians, but ask any musician, what kind of music do you do? And you'll get oh, well, it's kind of a little this, it's kind of a little that, or I do completely unique music. It can't be described at all. I'm unlike anybody else. Well, I'm here to tell you that neither one of those answers is correct. Okay? You don't do every style of music. You don't sound totally unique or not like anyone else. And you can't be wishy-washy or roundabout or say, oh, that's so hard for me to answer, I don't know. It's not a complicated question. People need something to relate to. They want to put your music in a kind of context with something that they already know. So when they ask you what kind of music do you do, they really want an answer. And this is a question that you've got to be able to answer for them. Specifically, you need to know what genres do you fit into, because when it comes to booking, venues are going to be associated more than likely with particular genres. And if you don't play that genre of music, then that venue is not appropriate for you. And there's no need for you to waste your time, and there's no need for you to waste the venue's time. Okay? So think about the genres. I say genres in plurals because sometimes you can cross several. I'm kind of folk, Americana, I'm really folk rock. I probably wouldn't play a rock venue though, because that's too rock for me, but I'm singer-songwriter, and they all kind of go together, but they're a little bit different. So you might play in several genres. You might fit into several genres. You also might actually play completely different genres and want to book yourself as different groups or in different venues entirely, specifically for those genres. Some people just like to be eclectic like that, and that's cool. But you need to know what genres of music you play. You also need to be able to give a short yet succinct description of your music. This is something that you should be able to write out, because there are going to be multiple places online that are going to ask you for a description of your music. Say, I don't know, maybe 100 words or less, something like that. 2 or 3 sentences, okay, something like that. So you need your genres, you need a short description, and you also need kind of an elevator pitch. Right? So imagine that you're riding up in an elevator with someone and they ask you, oh, you play music. Really? What kind of music do you do? And how do you answer that question? There can be a million different ways that you answer that question. Some people like to compare themselves to other artists, or like a mashup of other artists is sometimes good. One of the best descriptions I had for myself, for example, came from a fan who said I was a cross between Nancy Griffith and Melissa Etheridge, which to me is the perfect description of my music, because I'm not nearly as folky as Nancy Griffith, but I'm not nearly as rock as Melissa Etheridge, although I would so love to be. So I'm squarely in the middle of those two. Now, you might say, yeah, but a lot of people don't know who Nanci Griffith or Melissa Etheridge are. That doesn't matter. It matters that you have an answer to the question, and the people who do know who those people are will understand that, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking to give you some sort of context. So who do you sound like is another great question for you to answer for yourself. Who do you sound like? That gives people context. If they like those people that you're mentioning, then they'll probably like your music. Now, it doesn't really matter that you sound exactly like the people that you're comparing yourself to. They're not going to care about that. That's not what they're going to be listening for. It matters that you're going to be similar to them in the style of music. So, for example, if I say that I'm a cross between Nanci Griffith and Melissa Etheridge, I don't sound exactly like them, but I'm not saying that I sound like Beyonce, because my music is nothing like Beyonce. So if that's the only type of music that somebody likes, then they're probably not going to like my music. So you're really just giving people context here, okay? Who do you sound like? Another great question to ask that you need to know the answer is, what type of people like your music? Or another way to state it is, who is your ideal fan? This is a really critical question to ask yourself. Who is your ideal fan? And a lot of people will think, well, everybody's my fan. Everybody likes my music. And wow, we all wish that were the case for all of us. But that is just not reality and not true. And it won't help you if you try to scatter your music to everyone. You won't find the people who really like your music. So you need to try to qualify in your own mind, your own head, who are the type of people that are going to like your music, and who is your ideal fan? Who do you want to be playing for? Really is why you're asking this question. Also, what sets you apart from the thousands of other musicians that are out there, from the masses of other singer-songwriters, from the masses of other bands? This is an important question because you need to answer this question for the people who are going to book you. Why should a venue choose you over the 100 other people that they just heard from in the same day, probably? You need to learn how to differentiate yourself. I've heard this actually over and over again, especially recently in the music industry, because the industry has become so independent musician oriented. There are so many more people that are playing music because it's so much more accessible. It's so much easier to record your own music and get it out to the mass public, that we're kind of inundated with musicians and artists and all kinds of different music. So it's incredibly important to be able to differentiate yourself in that sea of musicians. What's going to make you stand out? Maybe it's your music or your songwriting. Maybe it's your technical skills. If you've ever seen Tommy Emmanuel play guitar, he's unlike any other guitar player out there. And guitar players love Tommy Emmanuel, right? So that sets him apart from even other guitar players. Maybe it's your show. Lady Gaga comes to mind because she really puts on a show. But you don't have to be that outlandish for your show to stand out. Maybe it's your fans. You know, when I think of the Grateful Dead, or Fish, I actually think of their fans sometimes even more than the band itself. I mean, they had a following, people who traveled all over the country just to see them play over and over and over again. So their fans really set them apart. Maybe it's something in your life. Maybe you have a special story. Where did you come from? Did you overcome some kind of struggle? How did you get to where you are? Maybe it's your style or your personality. And again, I immediately go to something like Lady Gaga, who has a definite style on stage and a very loud personality. Madonna had a style and a personality. And again, I'm not implying that you have to be to that extreme for those things to differentiate yourself, but what is it about you that sets you apart? Maybe it's simply that you have a specific message. Maybe you have a cause that you're working for. Maybe you're about social causes, and all of your shows are about that. Your songs are about that. You stand for that. Maybe, I actually have a friend, Joyce Rouse, calls herself Earth Mama. And she was into recycling and being green long before being green was cool. I mean, really, she was really at the forefront of that. And everything she does is based around that. That is her persona. And that is totally what sets her apart. I mean, even her name, Earth Mama, sets her apart. So what is it about your style, your show, your music? What can set you apart? Mine is that I play with my husband, Fett. We're a husband and wife duo, and we do harmonies. We have a particular sound. We have a particular blend to our voices. And every time we play, virtually bar none, somebody comments to us on that. Somebody comments to us about our particular sound that we have. And that just comes from the fact that we've been playing for years and years and years. And so we have a relationship on stage that you don't get with just anybody that you play with on stage. So we also play in different inversions and capo positions, and it gives us a really full sound. These are the things that differentiate us from other singer-songwriters, and maybe even from other husband-wife duos, because we know several of them. Okay, and this would be the type of thing that we would talk about. We use different instruments. We're starting to add in baritone guitar and a 12-string papoose and so on and so forth. Again, the more of that we do, the more we would talk about that in our description and use that to differentiate ourselves from every other acoustic act out there. Okay, so you're starting to get an idea of how to differentiate yourself. You don't have to be outlandish. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be you. It has to describe you. Really, when it gets down to it, you're trying to become a larger image of yourself. I don't want you to try to be something that you're not, because that definitely does not work. Okay, so don't try to put on a show if you're not about the show. Don't try to wear outlandish costumes like Lady Gaga if that isn't really you. Just take your own traits and magnify them a bit. I used to be in plays in high school and college. I was really into theater at the time. And when you're on stage, you literally have to exaggerate your movements so the people in the back of the theater can see what you're doing. While you're on stage doing it, you feel kind of funny and foolish, and you think, oh my gosh, this looks ridiculous because I'm so over-exaggerating. But to the people in the audience, even the people up front, it doesn't look outlandish. So that's virtually what you're doing here. You're taking parts of yourself that you like, that feel comfortable to you, that are maybe your strengths, and magnify them a little bit. Talk about them a little bit more. Become that larger image of those traits. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to limit yourself to just these traits and never do anything else. I mean, Lady Gaga is a lot more than just weird costumes. A lot of people love her for her song. She's actually quite an accomplished musician. But her personality is what makes her larger than life and why people notice her and remember her. I'm also not implying that you need to create a gimmick. Okay, so I want to be really clear that that's not what I'm talking about here. I just want you to learn to highlight your best features and find a way to make yourself stand out from every other singer-songwriter out there. I mean, you're creative, okay? You're a creative person, so this should be fun. Have fun with this. And when in doubt, if you are really struggling with this particular piece, when in doubt, ask your audience, ask your fans, because they sometimes can see right to those points when you can't. I mean, honestly, if people hadn't started talking to myself and my husband about our blend or our sound, I wouldn't have known necessarily to say that. I might have even thought, gee, that's really cocky if I said that. But when enough people say it to you, you think, wow, okay, there must be something to it. That's what people hear. That's what people like. That's what they're attaching themselves to. Great, we'll go with that. And because people started saying those things to us, we actually kind of hone in on that. We work on that. When I write a new song, I think about the harmonies and we work that into the show. Okay, so when in doubt, ask your audience, ask your fans. They can be unbelievably helpful. That's a lot, and it may sound simplistic, and again, you might be thinking, what do I need this for? Can't we just move on? Again, I'm going to emphasize, really do the work, put in the time and effort into these upfront questions. It's going to make a huge difference. And here are the materials you're going to need to do booking, and we're going to talk about all of these in this module. We're going to start with talking about your press kit. It is the major player. You still need a physical press kit. We're going to talk about that. You may need a one sheet as well, and that'll be easy to create after you have your press kit. An EPK or an electronic press kit. You're also going to need your own website and definitely a mailing list. And finally, I'm going to mention some marketing materials. They're kind of a bonus. You don't have to have them ahead of time, but if you do have them, it sure will make some things easier and will make you more attractive to some of the venues that you're talking to. So let's dive right in. What's in a press kit? A press kit, by the way, is also sometimes called a promo kit or a media kit, but in the music business, I most often hear it referred to as a press kit. And it's not just for the press. You're going to use this to send to venues. You would also use this if you were looking for a label deal or maybe even a booking agent. There's lots of different reasons why you would use a press kit. But for our purposes in this course, we're going to talk about a press kit that you're going to use to get a gig, to get the booking. So what's in a press kit? First is your bio, which just stands for biography. You're also going to need a photo of yourself, some quotes and reviews. You want to talk about some of your career highlights as well as awards and honors. You're going to include a CD or a DVD. You might have a venue list and some radio airplay if you have that. And then again, if you have those extra marketing materials, this would be a great place to include them. So what exactly is the purpose of a bio? I mean, why do you need a bio? Well, oddly enough, I just recently wrote an entire article on writing a bio, and these are not my words. I wrote this for CMA Close-Up magazine, and it was really a great assignment for me because I got to interview a whole bunch of big-time journalists who write bios for some major label acts. I mean, really major people. And as you can see by this quote here, a bio is simply just a sales piece. It's intended to introduce the artist and their music to all kinds of different people: fans, press, radio, promoters, booking agents, etc. Now, in the case of these people that I interviewed, they said that it's almost always associated with a new album release, which I found interesting. I don't necessarily find that true for all independent artists, but it's an interesting concept, and you certainly could do that as an independent artist. That's the way that they always do it, because major label artists are usually releasing an album a year. But the bio really tells the story of the artist. It tells who they are and what they currently have going on. That's what's really important. Who are you and what do you have going on? And ding, 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 it describes what sets their music apart from other artists in their genre. Yay! Where have we heard that before? Because we heard that recently. Now you understand why I'm having you do all of this upfront work, because it's going to be used right away. You're going to use this in your bio, and it's really very important. Also, but wait, there's more. Tom Rowland, who's a freelance writer for Billboard, was one of the people that I got to interview. And he made a really excellent point. In today's music biz, the bio really serves multiple purposes. So it's even more important than it used to be. You might find that your bio gets printed in a program at a venue. They'll pull stuff out of your bio and just print it word for word. You are going to use your bio on your artist's website so that your fans can read about you, and anybody who comes to your website can find out about you and who you are and what you have going on. If it's written in the right way, it might be reprinted in media. Small newspapers sometimes don't have big staffs. So if your bio is written as an article, they will run it as a feature piece. It's also the source for tour press. I found this really interesting, is that this is where people who are going to interview you, this is where they're going to look for information and base their questions around items that are in your bio. So you're setting the tone. This is according to Tom. You're setting the tone for the questions that the artist is going to be asked over and over again. Make sure it's questions you want to be asked for the next 18 to 24 months. Okay, that was a really good point to make. So as you can see by those two quotes, the bio is really a very important piece to you as an artist, and certainly to your press kit. A lot of information is going to be in that bio. So let's talk about a bio in detail. Now, one key feature is that a bio is one page or about 500 words. And trust me on this one, don't go over that one page. I've seen sometimes some major label artists who have been around, who've had careers for a really long time. They can sometimes get away with a 2-page bio. But the reality is that most people don't have the time nor the inclination to read pages and pages and pages of information about you. So you want to limit the length of the bio to 1 page or about 500 words. It should be written in third person, you know, as if somebody else was writing it about you, even if you write it about yourself. Occasionally, you can get away with writing it in first person. I've seen 1, maybe 2 artists get away with that. I think Taylor Swift did something like that just recently, but you know, she's in the position that she can pull that off. I don't suggest that for most people, so I would stick to third person if I were you. It's written in the active tense, not the passive tense, and you may have to take a grammatical lesson to remember what that is, but you want to use action verbs instead of passive verbs. And as it was suggested in Tom Rowland's quote, you want to make it read like an article. So what I mean by that is use quotes in your bio. Quote yourself. Again, even if you're writing this about yourself, put quotes in it as if someone interviewed you, and write it as if it's a story, like a feature story in a newspaper. Because if you do it that way, there is always the chance that it will get picked up by a small paper and run as is, and that's good press for you. Now you want to make sure that you don't use hype, that you don't over-exaggerate, or certainly don't out and out lie. So don't say that you are the greatest artist of all time. Even if you think that you are, you can't say that about yourself. And a lot of people won't think that's the case. All right. So if you over-exaggerate things or kind of overhype yourself, it actually is a detriment. It will detract from you as an artist. You also don't want to use cliches or gross generalizations, even things just like critically acclaimed, or an artist whose time has come, or highly anticipated release. Those are things that we've read so many times in so many publications that they really have lost their oomph and they don't mean anything anymore. It seems to me that every album that's ever been released has been critically acclaimed. Critically acclaimed by who? Okay, so it's best if you just leave that stuff out. Don't use a lot of adjectives even, because it looks amateurish, and people start to wonder, really. Also, you don't want to tell people how to feel about your music. You know, people don't like to hear that someone is the greatest artist, since sliced bread, because they want to make that judgment. They want to make that call for themselves. They don't want to be told that this is the greatest person alive. Make sure that you check your spelling and grammar. Might sound very nitpicky, but it's actually very important, because if you release a bio in your press kit with a lot of typos, a lot of grammatical mistakes, it looks poorly on you as the artist. It looks like you're an amateur. It looks like you didn't care enough to go over the details of your bio. It looks like you were rushed. And, quite frankly, if you don't have the time for your career, why should somebody else? So little things like that will make a huge difference. And when in doubt, hire a professional to write your bio. So if you're feeling like, wow, this is something I don't want to tackle myself, no problem. Get somebody else to write the bio for you. In fact, I have some suggestions. There are 3 people that I know personally on different levels. Ariel Hyatt of Cyber PR, she's in New York City. She has a marketing service and PR service for artists, and she's very excellent. She's very highly regarded in her field, but she also has a bio writing service at reviewU.com that's very affordable. Chuck Whiting is in Nashville, my home city, and you can see him at whitingpublicity.com and get information about his services. He is a publicist and does all kinds of publicity work for artists, not only just musicians, but actually visual artists as well. So he has a wide variety of clients. And Dan Kimpel is in Los Angeles, and his website is dankimpel.com. He's also written books and articles and things on bio writing and publicity. So all 3 of these individuals are highly knowledgeable and really good in their field, and I can highly recommend them. Another alternative is to look for a journalist who writes bios, because a lot of journalists do, but not all of them, so you'll have to ask. But if there's someone that you know that's a journalist, someone that you're friends with, you can ask them and hire them to do that. Or I like to suggest to people that you look around on other artists' sites. Look online. Go to a bunch of artists that you like. Go to their website, read their bio, and when you find one that you like, find out who wrote it. Ask the artist, ask the manager, see if there's a credit on the site, and just hire that person to write your bio, because you obviously like their style of writing. The next piece is the artist photo, and an 8x10 color is now the standard. It used to be black and white, but nowadays a lot of publications, print publications, are in color, so they like to see an 8x10 color, glossy or matte in the press kit. This serves a bunch of different purposes. This is going to be used for the press, yes, but really to me, when you're including a photo in the press kit, it's because the person that you're sending this material to wants to see what you look like. They want to see who you are. So I think it's really important to include a good 8 by 10 color photo. It's great if you can include both a horizontal and a vertical photo. If you know what I mean by that, the orientation of the photo is either horizontal or vertical. The reason for both, if you can afford to do it, is for press, really. Because if they have a particular space that is open in the newspaper or the magazine, it may only be one way or the other. And you'll oftentimes get your photo in the paper or in the magazine if you can provide both versions. So if you can do it, that's a great little bonus. It's not a requirement, though. Also keep in mind that a headshot is not just a headshot anymore. We used to call these photos headshots, and I have refrained from calling it that because often you'll find that an artist's photo even incorporates a scene these days. And that can really be helpful for the artist because it helps to give the person more information about what style of music that you do. So I think that's often a good thing. What you're trying to do, though, is you're trying to capture the essence of you, the artist, in that photo. You are trying to help show the music, show the genre. Okay, so you want to encapsulate everything in this one photo, and it can be very difficult to do. Make sure that you avoid what I call the Olin Mills studio look. And you probably know what I mean by that. It's like, the family photographer who sets you up with a blue screen in the back and has you hugging your guitar by your cheek. That's been overdone to death. It doesn't look artistic. It looks a little hokey and campy. And it just won't offer anything else about you, the artist. So try to stay away from that. Try to use professionals that are used to photographing music artists. I mean, even try to stay away from photographers who only do weddings. Now, that's not to say that all wedding photographers, can't photograph you, but you're looking for someone who understands that they're trying to capture an artistic perspective, you the artist, and not just get a good snapshot of you or something that's pretty. Okay, so it would be really helpful if you can use a photographer that's used to photographing music artists. You also, especially in this day and age, want to beware of your brother-in-law turned photographer just because he bought a brand new whiz-bang camera with all the bells and whistles. And you know who I'm talking about. Everybody thinks they're a photographer these days. Now, I'm not saying that you can't snap some photos of yourself or have your brother-in-law snap some photos of yourself, and you might get a really good one out of it. That's fantastic if you do, but don't count on that, and don't necessarily think that that's the best artistic photo of you either. If you can, it's always best to use a professional who can help get more out of that photo than just a pretty shot. And here's a story that I wanted to mention because this was really unusual. The group that I last performed with, the Four Bitchin' Babes, the last photo that we had taken while I was still in the group, we were all decked out in black, and we all wore these big necklaces that were real chunky and gemmy, and we did up our hair and makeup real fancy, and we wore all these gems, and we took this really fabulous photo, what we thought was a fabulous group photo. And here's what happened. Because of the way that we were dressed in all black, because of our fancy hair and makeup and the big jewelry, everybody who saw our picture at a theater, which is where they were hanging up, thought that we were classical singers. And that's because we looked like classical musicians in that shot. That never occurred to us when we took the photo. We thought it was fun and kind of, kind of silly actually for our particular group, and we're all about bling, and we talk about bling on stage, but in a funny way. So we thought it was a great shot, and we were all looking at the camera. We all had great smiles. We thought, woohoo, look at that. And yet everybody thought that we were classical singers. So that was a mistake on our part artistically. And I have since left the group, of course, and I know that they took new headshots, and my guess is they didn't take a headshot that looked like that. So that was something to really consider, and something that I wanted to share with you all to make sure that you know what type of headshot you're taking and why it's important, because you don't want to get mistaken for some other genre. Next, you're going to need some reviews. You're going to need reviews of your live show, and you're also going to want reviews of your CD. Both will be very, very helpful. This is really just someone else endorsing your music. This is so that you're not the only one saying that you're good, really. Less is definitely more. So if you have a ton of reviews of your CD because you got a lot of press for your last release, or maybe you've been around a while and you have 4 different CDs out and you have reviews for all of them, less is more. So pick and choose. Do not overload your press kit with tons and tons of reviews and tons of paper. You will not make any friends that way. You will not impress anyone. No one wants to read that much, and in fact, you'll probably annoy them a tad with all the waste. So less is definitely more. Pick the best ones and move on. When you do get a review in a newspaper or a magazine, you're going to want to either get reprints from the publication itself, or make them yourself. You can make copies, but the point is you want it to look like it came from that publication. So you want the masthead on there, and you want to cut it out with the actual look of the article itself, instead of just copying the text, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You want it to look like it came out of that publication, and that's really important. Also, don't forget bloggers. We're also used to looking for reviews in newspapers and music magazines and things like that, but bloggers are really in the know these days, and they are what we call tastemakers. So there are a lot of people online that are doing reviews. They are sometimes, certainly not always, but they are sometimes easier to get a review on a blog than it is in a newspaper. Again, not always. So don't forget them. Maybe look around for bloggers who are doing your style of music. You certainly want to approach the right type of bloggers, but look for people online when you're thinking about reviews. If you really need a review and you don't have any, either because you're just starting out, or you're kind of in that catch-22, you can't get a review because you don't have any reviews kind of thing, again, Ariel Hyatt has a service called Review You, and they will, for a fee, review your CD for you so that you have something to start your press kit out with. And I think it's a really excellent service. So if all else fails and you're really needing something, go to Review You and get a review. You're also going to want quotes. A review is like a full-length piece that someone writes about either your CD or your live show. But in the beginning, you may not have a lot of reviews, but even if you do, it's great to pull out some quotes. Just a segment of that review, one line that was really excellent, and pull that out. You can often even pull quotes out of reviews, even from negative reviews. Oftentimes, the writer will actually give this to you. If they're doing a review and it's not so great overall, they'll often kind of give you a quote that you can pull out. So look for that, and that's a way that you can certainly use that piece. But these are great to scan. You know, you want to make a sheet that's really easy for someone to see the highlights of what people have said about you. So that's why even when I have reviews, I like to pull out quotes and put them on a page all by themselves, because it's really easy for that booker to just scan down that piece of paper and see what people are saying. And you know what? You can ask for these. You can ask for quotes from venue owners that like you. If you're already playing in a venue in your hometown and they like you there, ask them to give you a quote. Ask your fans. Who are your really big time fans who come to all of your gigs? Ask your fans to give you a quote. Is there some radio DJ that's playing your music, whether it's in your hometown or elsewhere? Ask them for a quote. Oftentimes, people will be glad to give you a quote that you can use, and you can use it on your website, on your Facebook page, and Twitter. You can use it here in your press kit. You're going to use it in lots of different places. So just make sure you ask for them. Also, another story, be willing to be a little funny and creative. You know, I sometimes think having a quote from your mother would be a great thing as like the bottom of the page. So have these really high level quotes from Billboard and whatnot, and then, you know, have a silly quote from your mom or make one up. I used to have a brochure. This was really early on in my career. So this is like 20 years ago. And Fett, my husband, had a niece who was 4 years old at the time. And she sent us a Christmas card or something. We had just sent her my cassette tape. This is how far back I'm going. And she said, "Your music is the best in the whole wide world," which I thought was really hysterical, and it was really cute coming from a 4-year-old. So I put that in my press kit. So I had these great quotes from local venue owners, and right at the bottom I had, "Your music is the best in the whole wide world, Kira, age 4." And, you know, that got a smile from people. It shows that you're personal. It shows that you don't take yourself too seriously. It can just be a nice icebreaker. So, you know, if you're looking for something interesting to do, be creative and quote somebody else. You're also going to want maybe just one page with some career highlights or some awards and honors. And I'm going to kind of differentiate them here, but you may not include both of them. They may be on one page. But career highlights are just significant events that have happened. Like if you toured with a major artist of some sort, toured with so-and-so. If you had songs that have been in film and or TV, and it's, you know, if you had a song that was on Grey's Anatomy, like Ingrid Michaelson did, that would be a great thing to include as a career highlight. If you've sold a whole bunch of CDs, like 10,000, all on your own, then that's a great career highlight. Anything that you think stands out positively or is something that you want people to know about you that might not show up elsewhere, that's a career highlight. Now be careful with opened for or shared a stage with. These terms generally mean, yeah, I played the same festival as, you know, insert huge star name here. I went on at 2:25 in the afternoon and played for 20 minutes, and the big star headlined at 10 p.m. And all of a sudden I get to say, oh yeah, I opened for said star. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to say that you opened for or shared, especially shared a stage with. That can be kind of misleading. Now, certainly if you realistically went on tour and opened for an artist, that's a different thing altogether, and there are ways to say that. So make that distinction, I guess is what I'm saying. Awards and honors are things that are a little more concrete, like if you won a Grammy or an Oscar or a People's Choice Award, that would certainly be something that you wanted to mention. But they don't have to be like that significant. If you won an award from the Folk Alliance or a Posse Award, if you won a contest like the John Lennon Songwriting Contest or the Unisong Contest or the Kerrville New Folk Contest, maybe if you even won a radio station event, you know, anything else like that that stands out, that someone said, yeah, we're recognizing you for this. It doesn't matter whether it's on a local, regional, national, international level, okay? Start where you are. Start where you are and be proud of those accomplishments. Of course, you're going to want to include a CD and or DVD in your press kit. I mean, They need to hear your music, right? It is all about the music. So typically, you're going to include your most recent CD release. But sometimes the venue person is going to want a CD of a live performance. So you're going to have to ask ahead of time which type of music do they want, if they have a preference. If they want a live performance, then you're going to have to record yourself live at a gig. You're going to have something that you can send them for that, if you want that gig. Some people would prefer actually to see a DVD of a live performance. They not only want to hear you, they want to see how you perform. They want to really know that you can pull this off. And sometimes you can actually just include a DVD that's almost like an EPK. It's really a sales piece. So it's part music, it's part interview, it's part sales pieces, whatnot. It's kind of an overall piece to sell you as an artist. Those are not usually necessary for what I would kind of refer to as lower end gigs like coffee houses and even listening rooms, clubs. They don't usually require a DVD. And in fact, some people don't want a DVD because they don't want to be tied down to their computer or their television. They don't want to have to be sitting in front of something to hear you and see you. Okay, so don't assume that just everybody, oh, that would be the best thing to do and that's all I'm going to provide, because some people won't want that at all. Some people want to have a CD because they're going to listen to music in their car on the way home while they're driving home from their day job or something. Okay, so you're going to want to ask. You're always going to want to ask which it is that they want, but more than likely, they're just going to be fine with you sending your most recent CD release. And finally, some of the optional items that you can include in your press kit are a venue list of the various venues that you have already played. It is sometimes nice for venue owners to see that you're playing a particular level of venue. They want to see where else you've played, because in essence, if you've played other places, they know that someone else has already taken a chance on you. That's a good sign. You might want to include your tour dates to show the types of places that you're playing and how often you're playing. If you're getting radio airplay in places, you can include radio stations where you're getting that. Oftentimes it's good to include your social media numbers. If you have an awful lot of people as friends on Facebook, if you have a big Twitter list, and if you're active on those, if it actually means something, include those numbers. More importantly, if you have a mailing list that is significant, those numbers mean a lot more. So if you've got 2,500 people on your mailing list or 5,000 people on your mailing list, that's a really good thing to mention in your press kit. And then marketing material. I keep bringing up this marketing material, so let's talk about it. What I mean by that is posters, postcards, flyers, anything that the venue could actually use on your behalf to help put butts in the seats, to help get people to the show. By including some marketing material in your press kit, by offering it to the venue, you are letting the venue person know that you understand that it takes marketing to get people to the show, that you're willing to help out, that you have materials that you can provide to them to even help them in their marketing efforts. That's a really good sign to someone at a venue. A lot of musicians assume it is up to the venue to fill those seats. They don't want to do any of the work, and they don't even attempt to. So if you are showing the venue person that you understand this aspect of the gig, it really puts you on a completely different level. They know that you're taking this seriously and treating your career as a business, and that's a really, really good sign. So things like posters and things that you could have made up ahead of time. Anybody can make a poster. Anybody can make a postcard. There's lots of different places on the internet where you can get them printed for relatively inexpensive prices. Now, what if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of stuff, as I like to call it, to fill your press kit? Or maybe you're starting over. You've been out of music for a while and you're just getting back to it after a long hiatus. Same kind of thing. You don't have a lot of materials to put in your press kit. What do you do then? Well, the first thing that you need to know is that here are your key materials that are absolute must. You have to have a bio, you have to have a photo, and you have to have that CD. Those are pretty much mandatory. And if that's all you've got, then start with that. Now, I like to think that anybody can also add a quotes page. Because remember, you can ask your fans, you can ask people who like you for quotes. And one page with 3 or 4 really choice quotes and lots of white space is all it would take to I think, add something really significant to the bio and the photo and the CD. And I think it would really get someone's attention too. So that would be a nice piece as an extra. But when it comes down to it, bio, photo, CD, those are mandatory. Also keep in mind that if you don't have a lot of stuff, that white space and attractive packaging are your friend. Now, this is true actually for anybody, really, but I'm pointing it out here because you don't have to clutter things up and cram things into one page. Give your photo some space around it. Put some space around those quotes. Make the folder that you put your bio and your photo and your CD into attractive, and put a good photo on the outside of the folder or something to get their attention. Make it appealing and attention grabbing. That's more important than having stuff after stuff after stuff. If you can get their attention with your photo, if you can have a well-written bio and a couple of choice quotes, for some people that's all that they really need to get their attention and put that CD in the player. And if they like your music, they're going to book you off of that more than anything else. And once again, I'm back to marketing material. If you don't have a lot of stuff to put in your press kit besides your bio and your photo and your CD and maybe that quotes page, then this is a great time to throw in a poster and a postcard and a couple other marketing pieces, again, to show the venue owner or the person doing the booking at the venue that you take this seriously and you can help them. That alone will really get their attention and may even be more attractive to them than a whole lot of reviews taking up space. But by far the most important piece of your entire package, your entire press kit, is the cover letter. And it is the thing that gets ignored, left out the most. You absolutely must have a cover letter that accompanies your press kit. Do not, under any circumstances, send out a press kit with no letter attached. I promise you, it will just get trashed. So what do you include in a cover letter? First of all, you're going to address it to a specific person. None of this dear sir or madam stuff. No dear booking person. Trust me, I've seen it all. If you don't know who that person is, you're going to call the venue ahead of time and find out who that person is. You're going to find out how to spell their name correctly, and you're going to find an address of where to send it. A cover letter is extremely short, a couple of paragraphs tops, if possible. If you can get away, with being short, that's what you want to get away with. Shorter is definitely better here. If you've had a previous contact with someone there, if you called them on the phone ahead of time, you want to mention that. In other words, dear Mr. Jones, it was a pleasure speaking with you on the phone today about a potential booking at your venue, blah. I'm looking forward to working with you on this, or something to that effect. Mention that you talked with them, and that's why you are sending, per our conversation, although I hate the term per. As I mentioned to you on the phone, here's the press kit that I'm forwarding for that gig, or something to that effect. Try to make it conversational, but definitely reference the conversation if you had them. That's just to help jog their memory that they did have a conversation with you. Make sure that you state exactly what you are looking for. Do not be vague about this in any way. If you are coming through town in June, then you're looking for a gig in June, and you want to make sure that you say that. In fact, being specific is way more helpful to you here than being vague. They want specifics. Don't tell someone that, oh, you can play anytime. That doesn't work for them. They don't want to try to decide when you're going to play. You give them some dates that you're coming through town and tell them exactly that's when you're looking for. And this should be a given, but I never take this as a given. You always want to be polite, friendly, and professional in your letter. I don't care if they were a jerk to you on the phone. I don't care what they did to you. Your letter and every conversation that you have with them needs to be polite, friendly, courteous, and professional. This, by the way, is a business letter. It's not a text. It's not even an email. This is a printed letter, and it should look like one. So if you need to brush up on what a business letter style looks like, I'll figure out where you can go to on the internet and find that information for you. But you need to brush up on that because it needs to look like a professional letter. And important, very, very important, your contact info should appear on every single item in your press kit. Every single piece that I've mentioned so far, including the disc itself, not just your CD cover, but the disc itself, including your bio, including the quotes page, including your photograph. Every single item needs to have your contact information on it, because you know what? Things get separated all the time. And if they only have one item in front of them, you still want them to be able to get a hold of you. They won't go looking for the other pieces. They won't go try to find your website and look you up. They don't have the time, and they don't need to do it. So make it super, super easy on them. I also like to suggest that you give them multiple ways to reach you. Give them a landline, a cell phone, an email address, a fax if you use one. I mean, I used to do that all the time. I don't know how many people fax anymore, but a Facebook, a website, whatever. Anything you have, make sure that it is available to them so they can choose their preference. How do they want to contact you? Let them decide. And finally, I want to touch on some packaging options. How do you package up this press kit? Because really, when it comes to press kits, appearance matters. People are going to see your packaging, they're going to see your press kit, and they're going to see your CD cover before they ever hear your music. So in this case, what they see is really important. That's why we talk about all of these pieces and make such a big deal about them, because they're going to see these words, they're going to see the photos, they're going to see the packaging, and you're trying to get their attention enough to actually put the CD in the player to hear your music. We all know that your music is going to sell them and they're going to love you, and that's when they're going to want to book you. But until they get that CD in the player, you don't have a shot. So you've got to get them to do that. That's what you're shooting for, okay? You want your package to stand out, just not in a bad way. So when it comes to packaging, you want to think clean, easy to read, professional, and attention getting. That's the operative term there, attention getting. Color designed papers from the office store are a great way to give a little flash, a little touch of something to your papers, instead of them just being plain white papers or even just plain blue papers. Instead of just printing on one color, there are some papers that you can buy at any office store, and they have like themes. And I'm not talking about the hokey themes with flags or, bunnies on them or something, but there are some really nicely designed theme papers. If you go looking at the office store, you'll see what I mean. And they can just give a little flair to your press kit items if they're all on the same kind of paper. You want to put everything together in a folder of some sort. Usually it's the folders that you open up and they have two pockets in the bottom. I'm actually in another video going to show you some examples of press kits that I have from when I used to work at American Songwriter magazine. So you can get an idea of the different types of packages that got sent into us on a daily basis. It's really kind of eye-opening, and you'll see good, bad, and indifferent, and you can decide which one caught your attention. So that's really what I want you to see. But the most common form is for it to all be in a folder together, because it's a nice way to keep the pages straight. It gives a place for the CD to fit in. It's a place to put your business card and things like that. Of course, you can always professionally print brochures and folders, but it's much more expensive and not necessarily required, especially for gigs at coffee houses and listening rooms and clubs and your typical music venues. Now, when you get up into some of the higher level gigs, like some of the theaters that we played with my band, the Four Bitchin' Babes, probably were expecting pretty slick quality when it came to a press kit. So in that case, it would be important to have something really refined, and I might go to the trouble of having something professionally printed. Whoa, Nelly. Anybody still with me out there? I hope that you are. I have more material to go over, but we are getting there, so get up and walk around, take a break if you need one, and then come back and let's go on. Because so far, remember, these are the things that you need. So far, we've talked about a press kit in great vivid detail, and we've talked about those bonus marketing materials that anyone can do and include in that press kit. So let's talk about the remaining four. First is a one sheet, and you'll see that it's called a one sheet. Sometimes it's spelled a one dash sheet. Sometimes it's called a promo sheet, but really I most often hear it referred to as a one sheet. And why is that? Well, lo and behold, because it's typically on one sheet of paper. Now, it might be two-sided, it might not be. I would suggest that you only do a one sheet that's two-sided if that's absolutely necessary. But it can be double-sided sometimes. And really, a one sheet is kind of a condensed version of a press kit. It's kind of all on one sheet. It's about an artist, or sometimes it's specifically about a CD release, and it will include pretty much everything that was in that press kit. It'll have photos on it. There won't be a separate glossy photo. It'll just be photos on the sheet of paper with text around it. The text will be part of the bio. It might include some quotes, some brief reviews. It might include what tracks that you want the radio station to play. What are your best tracks? What are you going for singles? Things like that. In this case, design is critically important because you only have one sheet of paper to deal with, and you don't want it to look like a cluttered mess. You kind of want to guide their eye around the page. So it would be really important to get a designer involved to make sure that that's what you do, so that it looks and flows well and everything is readable on the page. And of course, you always want to make sure that your contact information is on this one sheet as well. One sheets are particularly good for radio stations. They don't like a lot of clutter. They don't need a lot of press kit stuff. They just kind of need to know who you are, what tracks they should play, and they like to see a picture of you. So it's great to include a one sheet with your disc to a radio station. Sometimes press even prefers a one sheet. And honestly, for some gigs, you could probably get away with sending just a one sheet and your CD and get the gig. So it's really going to depend on the style of the gig, the level of the gig, things like that. Again, you can always ask up front. Some people are really opposed to gobs and gobs of paper. They just don't want to have to wade through it, and they don't want the waste. So ask ahead of time, and hey man, if a one sheet will do it, send them a one sheet. But this is why it's nice to have both. You want the option. Nowadays, you're also going to want some form of electronic press kit. And really, that's just a standard physical press kit in digital form. It can take lots of different digital forms. We'll talk about that in a second. But it really, again, includes everything that we just talked about, but just an electronic version of that. So something that they can get to on a website. Instead of a glossy photo, it's going to include a high-res downloadable photo, which means it needs to be 300 dpi or more. That's usually for press. It will more than likely include links to your music or sometimes downloadable MP3s, maybe the option to stream them or download them. Some people don't want to download them, they just want to stream them. Some people want to have them for forever. It just depends. This electronic press kit might be on your website. You might deliver it on a disc. It could even be on a thumb drive. So it can take lots of different forms. But the point is, everything is digital. There's no paper. Some EPKs will also include things like stage plots or sound requirements. But these are seldom necessary before you've gotten the gig. I think they do them mostly as a convenience. Places like Sonic Bids, which I'm going to talk about in a second, will include things like stage plots. And that's good for after you get the gig. So here are some places online where you might have an electronic press kit. Sonic Bids is very popular and most people know about it. You can actually have an EPK that you can email to people and you can submit to their listings. They have a lot of gig opportunities on Sonic Bids. Reverb Nation also has a place for you to create an electronic press kit. I do believe it's another fee besides your normal Reverb Nation. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's an extra fee. But again, they offer it as a service. And then there are places like Artist eCard, ePress Kits, Power Press Kits, and Lafango. Again, just other places on the web where you can create an EPK. So there's lots of different options that are available to you. I don't recommend that you have EPKs in all of these places. I don't think that's really necessary. But you might find that having at least one of them is going to be important for you, I think. Because here's the thing about electronic press kits. They have pros and cons. And the pros of the electronic press kit are obviously that there's no paper involved. You don't have to do any printing and you don't waste trees. Most of the electronic press kit services have an email capability, so you can actually email a press kit to a potential buyer. There aren't any postage costs to sending them since you can email them. There aren't any printing costs, and they're instantly updatable. So as soon as something changes in your career, you can add that. You can update your bio online, and it can be instantly available to everyone. The cons, however, are that not everyone likes being tied to their computer. So not everyone wants an EPK, because to see it, they're going to have to be sitting at their computer, looking at it online, on a website of some sort. And a lot of people actually really want to sit at their desk and go through papers, maybe while they're listening to your CD or whatever. They just don't want to be tied to their computer all the time. Also, some EPKs have a very generic feel to them. All of the EPKs look very similar on that particular service. Like on Sonic Bids, they all have a similar feel. Yeah, you can technically change the color, but everything is still laid out in the same fashion. So it can have a very generic feel and not really set you apart so much like an actual press kit can. There's usually a monthly fee involved for having that press kit. And also, it's just not in plain sight. You know, there's something to be said for a press kit that is laying on someone's desk, which they'll actually see just sitting at their desk. They'll come across it. An EPK they would actually have to go to on their own. So this is the reason why I don't suggest that you only have an EPK. This is why you still need physical press kits. I know a lot of people think that in this day and age, a lot of people are going digital and everything is going digital and there's no need for paper anymore. I think some people maybe think that they don't need a physical press kit. That has not been my experience. If it's been yours, I would love to hear from you about that. But it has been my experience, even until very, very recently, that a lot of people still want to hold that press kit in their hand, and that paper is still vitally important. So I think, again, it's important for you to have a physical press kit, a one sheet, and an EPK available, and always ask, which do they prefer? At the same time, I also think it is critically important that you have your own website. And when I say your own website, I mean preferably www.yourartistname.com. And obviously, you would change your artist name for whatever your name or your band name is. Okay. Now, sometimes, I have a friend whose name is John Smith. And I don't believe that he got johnsmith.com in time. It would be really hard to do that. So I think his is johnsmithmusic.com. Sometimes you're going to have to be creative with your name. But the point is, you want this to be your very own website, not your Facebook profile, not your Facebook page, not your MySpace page, if you're even still using MySpace, and not your Reverb Nation account, your Broadjam account, or any other social media site for that matter. Those are all important to have. We're not going to talk about them right now, but those are not your website. You do not own them. So first of all, they could go away tomorrow, like we saw pretty much with MySpace. Even though it's technically there, it kind of went up in smoke one day. So they could all go away tomorrow, and then what do you have? But also, you control your website, so you have more control over the look of it, the feel of it, the information that you put on it. You want it to be your hub, and you want to get people used to going to your website first, and then branching off from there into your other social media. Okay? So very, very important for you to have your own website. If you don't already have your own website and you need one, then these are my suggestions for how you can create your own website. The first is to create it in WordPress. WordPress will give you the most control over your website, and you can really make it entirely unique to you. If you hired someone to code a website for you, they would probably want to do it in WordPress. It's very common these days, and it works really well with the search engine. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of people go with WordPress. However, if you're not so technically inclined, or you don't want to be technically inclined, and you don't necessarily want to hire somebody out to create a website for you, then there are 4 examples here that I offer you to go check them out. I think highly of all of these places: Bandzoogle, HostBaby, Bandvista, and Bombplates. My current favorite, I have to say, is Bandzoogle. And I do know that they're making a fairly significant upgrade in the near future. I don't know when it's going to be, but they're going to actually offer even more features on their site. So I highly recommend all of them, though. They're very simple. You can create your website by yourself. You don't need any technical knowledge. It will look nice, and it will have all of the things that you need it to have on there for your visitors. And then, of course, you need a mailing list. And by mailing list, I really mean an emailing list. But the generic term is mailing list, so that's what I'm calling it. Your mailing list is your real fan list. This is not your Facebook fans or friends. These are not your Twitter followers, okay? Those can mean something. They mean a little bit. I mean, they're not entirely without merit. But when your mailing list has 2,500 or 5,000 people on it, that is real value. And that will really mean something to venues, promoters, and agents. You should guard this list with your life. These are your fans. They are your people. And a bigger list means that more people are coming to your shows. You're selling more CDs. You're getting better gigs. So if you don't have a mailing list yet, you need to start one right now, right exactly where you are. Even if you don't have any gigs lined up yet, doesn't matter. You need to start your mailing list now. This is how you're going to communicate directly with your fans. What you're doing is you're allowing people to kind of self-select. they're actually saying to you, I do want to hear from you. And that means more than just clicking a like on a Facebook page, okay? So you want to communicate directly with your fans and keep in contact with them. You want to make it easy for them to sign up. Super easy. There should be a sign up form on your website. You should have mailing list cards or a mailing list sign up form at your CD table at every one of your gigs, okay? Make it easy for people to sign up and make sure that you communicate with them on a regular basis. But under no circumstances should you sign up anyone who hasn't asked to be on your list. And I do mean anyone, just don't do it. First of all, it's against the law. Second, you'll really piss people off, especially music industry folks. So don't put the guy who does the booking to a venue where you want to play on your mailing list. Don't put the record label head that you're trying to impress on your mailing list. Don't put someone that you just meet at someone else's gig. You know, you had a friendly conversation. Don't just go home and put them on the list if they haven't asked to be on the list. Okay? It's really important that you follow these rules. The goal of your mailing list isn't to sign up anyone and everyone to your list. The goal, like I said before, is to allow your ideal fans to self-select. Self-select. Once they say, yeah, I want to be on your list, then you know that's really a fan because they want to hear from you. And you have their permission to communicate with them. That means a heck of a lot more. And that's really worth value. So you want to maintain a mailing list starting today. If you don't have one already, again, here are some suggestions of where you can start a mailing list. MailChimp is kind of my current favorite. They're just fun people. I like the company. I just like how they do things. Constant Contact is who I used for years and years, and I think I still have a service with them. Aweber is very popular, and they have a lot of really terrific features. Mad Mimi is one that I see a lot of people using, as well as my newsletter builder. And there are probably hundreds more, but this is a great place for you to start. And MailChimp, I think, even has a free service. I think you get 200 people free or something. I forget what the amount is. But go check out all these services and see which one works for you. And I want you to start your mailing list today. Okay, so that was a lot of information. What did we just talk about in Module 1? Let's summarize, shall we? Well, first, remember way back when we talked about your why, your what, and your who. The questions, the really important questions for you to answer for yourself and be vividly clear on what those answers are for you. We also talked about the fact that you need to know how to differentiate yourself from everybody else out there because there are so many people doing music these days. Boy, we talked a lot about press kits and what goes into a press kit and how to put it together and all the different pieces and what's optional and what's required and what to do if you don't have a lot of material to start with. We talked about EPKs and one-sheets, which are very similar to press kits, but different versions of those same things. We talked about the importance of having your own website, which is just another place to put a lot of this same information. And finally, we talked about creating a mailing list, which is critically important to your career overall. Yeah. Whoa. That, my friends, was an awful lot of material. I think I warned you ahead of time that my modules were going to be long because I have so much information that I want to share. And knowing me, I probably even left something out, and I'll come up with it by our call on Thursday and let you know if I do. But that was a lot of material. So I want you to really let it sink in. You may have to watch this a few times in different pieces to really take in all the information. What is your next step from here? The next thing you need to do is you need to complete the Before You Start Booking worksheet. This will ask you those questions. This will get you into action. This will get you thinking about your career. And it's the perfect step for you to take before we move on. And I'd also like for you to complete the bare minimum materials checklist. This will allow you to see where you are in that material list. What do you have already? What pieces do you have? What pieces do you need to work on? Where should you start first? If you can complete those 2 worksheets right now, you've taken a giant leap forward in your booking career, and you're really starting off on the right foot. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that for now. I am going to put up another video in the near future that will show you some examples of those press kits. I'm going to be sending you emails about when we're going to have the calls, so be thinking about your questions. I will also tell you where to email in those questions ahead of time. And if things are coming up for you as you're watching this, write them down. Make sure that you don't forget them. If I've left something out, I want to know, and I want to get you that answer. But for now, I think that's all I have to say. And I'm looking forward to seeing you hopefully on the call on Thursday. And I will see you again next Monday for Module 2. Have a great week.